G'day everybody and welcome back. So what the hell are we looking at here? What we're looking at is movement in the input shaft to the gearbox. So that requires a little more investigation. The first thing we're going to do is pop the cover off this side of the engine, off the clutch side. So this whole exercise began with a fairly simple task of just doing a clutch inspection. I stripped the clutch, was planning just to clean it, inspect it and put it back together. But then I noticed it was moving. The basket was moving up and down. And it's a little bit more movement than I'm comfortable with. So I thought we'd better have a look. And while we're at it, we'll get you up to speed with what's happening with the cylinder heads and everything else that we're working on here to try and get this thing together. All right, what are we looking at? So this is the crankshaft and this is the primary gear driving the clutch, and this is the input shaft for the gearbox. So the basket drives back through the plates and spins this shaft, and this is the shaft that we're concerned about. So we'll just remove, oh, there's a spacer behind that too, we mustn't lose. Okay, so my initial concerns are have at least been alleviated. I had a bit of a chat with Twan about this, and he said to me that it's not uncommon, it's not common, but it's not uncommon for the bearing to fret out inside that housing, or sorry, the housing to fret out, so that the outer race of the bearing essentially moves up and down inside the housing because it wallows the casing out. Now the best way to fix that is to go and buy a good second-hand set of cases. We could have, if we were faced with that, we could have, this is the path I would have taken, would be to split the case, machine the bearing housing out and fit a steel sleeve. It's a bit tricky, you've got to get your concentricity right because these cases are bored as an assembly, so they're bolted together and line bored, which means that we would have had to be pretty accurate. But it's not undoable, it's just, it would have been a bit of mucking around. But at least it's not this side of the engine, which means we have to start looking at the other side now. All right, I'm going to remove this bolt that I put in here to help me turn the crankshaft. And we'll start removing the case, the bolts for the case. Alright, so they're all loose. I'm going to give it a little tappy tap tap. I made myself a tool to do this. I just had some M16 threaded bar lying around, and a nut, so I've welded a nut on and welded a handle on, and I actually stuck a bit of copper to the bottom of it to prevent any damage to the shaft. Let's see how easily this thing comes off. Oh yeah. Just like that. Pretty good. That's going to be in the way, that kickstand. You are joking me. No, it's going to be in the way. You rotten thing. Oh, well, let's push that back on. And I'm going to have to get hardcore with those. Now I've got my in-hex sockets are at home, so I've got no room to work there now. Oh, God damn it. This one's proving a bit more difficult. All I've got to do is be able to move this down a bit. Just like that. Tappy tap tap. Alright, this is where the movement is. This might not be easy to film. I'm just going to try and get it, because of course this is where the clutch slave cylinder actuator rod runs right through the middle of that input shaft, and I guarantee you're not going to be able to see in there. There is a bush. I'm just trying to work it out because I'm blind as a bat. It looks to me like the bush is free floating in the housing. I'll see if I can capture that on my phone. That might be easier than using the GoPros at this stage. Doesn't look good. And that's how I wanted to spend my Australia Day, splitting some Ducati cases. You just can't ignore these things. As difficult as it is to, you just got to swallow it and do it. We'll know more when we get in there, but that doesn't look good. There's a lot of movement, and I don't know if it's the case that's worn or whether it's the bearing that's. Oh, it's not a bearing; it's a bush. So we'll see what we can do to fix it, and because, like I said, you can't ignore these things. Anyway, yeah, that's it. It is what it is. So let's push this to the side for now. And like I said, I'll be back in a day or two to deal with it. And in the meantime, we'll just have a quick chat about what we're up to with the cylinder heads and a couple of other things. I managed to get the kickstand off. Got the oxyacetylene torch, heated it up, melted the Loctite, gave it a few taps with a hammer and got the vice grips onto it and removed it. So 2 of those, thank you Gowan Lock. I'll be buying 2 of those as well. So speaking of Gowan Lock, I have spoken to Mick, and apart from one fairly big pain in the arse, there wasn't a lot of issues with it. So at least 3 of the valve guides are fine. The rockers are all fine, everything like that's okay. The only problem that we had in there was one bent inlet valve, and it's been bent for quite some time. So it's actually worn the valve stem. So Mick's ordered one from Italy. It'll probably arrive at Gowanlock somewhere around the end of next week. And from there, he'll try it in the new valve in the guide and see what sort of clearance they've got. And if it needs to be replaced, he'll replace that guide. Then he'll do a valve job on it, put it all back together, do the shims, send them back down with a laundry list of parts that I've ordered as well, and now we're adding to it. So that's where we're at with that, with the cylinder heads. One of the other topics that came up was in the comments was the question of balance and what difference is it going to make putting the 94mm pistons on compared to the 92mm pistons? None. So, I guess to sort of break it down a little bit, the way that an engine is balanced, essentially the only thing on the engine that's balanced is the rotating or the rolling assembly. The reciprocating assembly is balanced, but it's static balanced, not dynamic balanced. And how that works is, for example, two-cylinder motorcycle engine, you would take both of the pistons, you would put them on a scale, you would find which one is the lightest, and then you would remove material from non-critical parts of the piston, so non-critical in terms of its structure and also its functionality, so that it weighs the same as the lightest piston. And then with the conrods, you would hang them, say, by the big end and rest the small end on a scale, and do the same thing with the conrods, both ends. And that's how the reciprocating mass is balanced. It's static balanced. The crankshaft is put under lots of different varying loads and stresses. You not only have the reciprocating mass, but that reciprocating mass oscillates. And the force on and the load on the crankshaft varies from the top of the stroke to the bottom of the stroke, and depending what stroke it is. So you have compression forces during the power stroke, you have pumping losses, you have frictional losses, you've got all these things that are tied in, so to figure out exactly what weight counterweight you need to put on the crankshaft is actually quite a bit of a science. I've got a couple of pistons here. I've got one from the 94mm out of the ST2, and I've got one 92mm out of the SS900. So let's just have a quick look at how different they are. All right, I've got my scales here. It's only a small one. Hopefully you can see that okay. I'm a little bit apprehensive about this because the last time I played with scales, they gave me 8 years. Don't carry on. I only served 5. Okay, so this is the piston out of the 900 SS. You can see it's got quite a bit of material either side of where the gudgeon pin runs. I've removed the gudgeon pin on both of them so that we've got a better indication. So if we pop him on the scale, $428 grams. This is the piston out of the ST2. You can see it doesn't have as much material. So I think you know where we're going with this one. We pop him on the scale. And it's near as damn it to 421 grams. So there's only a few grams in it, and that you're not going to notice that. On a street bike, I'm talking street bikes here, we're not talking about race bikes. On a street bike, that's good enough, and you're never going to notice it. I put 3mm oversized pistons in my XS1100, 4 of them. Don't notice any variations. You don't notice any increase in vibration or anything like that. Now, if you did, then yeah, maybe you want to go and have a look at probably at least the static balance. But for what we're doing here, it's not going to matter. And in fact, the ST2 is lighter. And that surprises me just a little bit because Twan and I were having a bit of a laugh about it. And I'm not trying to make light of the guys that are asking the questions either, but he and I sort of think on the same level sometimes, I think. And he sent me a photograph of his scales at work, which obviously aren't as accurate as mine, because both of his pistons, the 92 and the 94, weighed exactly the same. So hopefully that put that question to rest about the balancing. We're not going to worry about it. We don't need to worry about it. So there you go. We have another issue that we can't ignore, and we need to go and follow up on. So that'll be episode 6. We'll be splitting the case and investigating what we can do with the bush that's flogged out in there, whether it is the bush or whether it's the casing. I'm not sure, and I won't know until I get in there. So that's going to be fun. So there you go. Oh, well, bit of an update. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe and comment. And I will catch you next time on Andy's Motorcycle Obsessions. Bye for now. Subscribe.